That meeting at the White House starting momentarily about the debt talks. Now the House is coming in. Lawmakers expected to continue work on the energy and water spending bill for next fiscal year. Live coverage on C-SPAN.
Be in order. The prayer will be offered by our chaplain, Father Conroy.
Let us pray. We give you thanks, O God, for giving us another day. We ask your blessing upon this assembly and upon all to whom the authority of government is given. We pray that your spirit of reconciliation and peace, of goodwill and understanding, will prevail on the hearts and in the lives of us all. Encourage the members of this House, O God, to use their abilities and talents in ways that bring righteousness to this nation and to all people. Ever remind them of the needs of the poor, the homeless, or forgotten, and those who live without freedom or liberty. May they be instruments of justice for all citizens. May your Spirit live in them and with each of us, and may your grace surround us and those we love, that in all things we may be the people you would have us be in service to this great nation. May all that is done within the People's House this day be for your greater honor and glory. Amen.
The Chair has examined the journal of the last day's proceedings and announces to the House his approval thereof. Pursuant to Clause 1 of Rule 1, the journal stands approved. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by the gentleman from Indiana, Congressman Bisklosky.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Chair will entertain requests for one-minute speeches. For what purpose does the gentleman from South Carolina rise?
Mr. Speaker, I ask permission to address the House for 1 minute, revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, sadly, with the unemployment rate rising on Friday, today's Investor's Business Daily lead editorial is correct. With unemployment now at 9.2% and job growth at a standstill, is there anyone not blinded by ideology or rank partisanship who can't see that Obama's spend and regulate economic plan has been an utter failure? Citing the unemployment rate has dipped below 9% in only 5 of the President's 29 months in office, the verdict is clear. No president since the Great Depression can match that record of failure. On Friday, The Hill proclaimed the President's campaign responds that people won't vote based on the unemployment rate. I believe the American people know better. Even worse, now liberals are pushing harder for tax increases that will kill jobs. Liberals do not understand, as the Lexington County Chronicle explained, people's incomes belong to them and does not belong to the government. Tax increases hurt small businesses and kill jobs. In conclusion, God bless our troops, and we will never forget September 11th and the global war on terrorism.
Gentleman's time has expired. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Illinois rise?
Ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to insert in the record a letter signed by more than 50 of my colleagues in support of the office of Congress.
Without objection, so ordered. The gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of H.R. 2354. I commend the work of my colleagues, Chairman Frelinghuysen and Ranking Member Vlasovsky of the Energy and Water Development Appropriations for their efforts to balance important energy and infrastructure funding in the nuclear energy, Army Corps of Engineers, and in particular the Office of Science. Strong funding at DOE is critical for the development of future reactor technologies and licensing for new nuclear and small modular modular nuclear power. Similarly, healthy funding for the Corps of Army Engineers is vital to our waterway commerce, protection from invasive species, and water quality in the Midwest. Finally, by maintaining our investment in the Office of Science, Congress will preserve our capacity to innovate, enhance our competitive edge in the global economy, and create good American jobs well into the future. Mr. Speaker, I ask my colleagues to support the Office of Science and yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlewoman yields back her time. For what purpose does the gentleman from Louisiana rise?
Ask unanimous consent to speak to the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentleman from Louisiana is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, enough with the backroom dealing on the debt ceiling. The debate has continued for months behind closed doors in the proverbial smoke-filled room with nothing to show for the effort. As a congressman, why should I be forced to peruse cable stations and blog sites for information on the discussions, and then be asked to vote for the deal when I have no input and no time to know even what's in it? Let's pull back the shades and open the window. Let's put the sunlight and fresh air on this discussion. Should we cut spending? Should we reform entitlements? Should we have a balanced budget amendment? Mr. Speaker, let Congress do its job and put the debate right here on the floor. Let's do this in the people's house for everyone to see. This will be the way the people and their choice come to fruition. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back his time. What purpose does the gentleman from Maryland rise?
Mr. Speaker, request permission to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentleman from Maryland is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, another week that our fiscal problems in this country are unsolved. We saw the jobs report, 18,000 jobs created when we need 350,000 jobs created in order to get our unemployment rate back down to 5%. And who can blame our job creators when all the talk in Washington now appears to be about how we can raise taxes on those job creators? And I don't care whether we call it expenditures in our tax code or revenues, what they are taxes on our job creators. And our job creators have responded by not creating jobs. Mr. Speaker, what they want is they want to know that Washington understands how to solve this problem. They want to know that we can cut our spending, we can cap our future spending, and Mr. Speaker, it's time for a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution of the United States. 49 of the 50 states have it. We should have it here in Washington so that we never have to face again the question of how high to raise our debt ceiling and how far to put our children in debt. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. What purpose does the gentleman from Georgia rise? Without objection, the gentleman from Georgia is recognized for 1 minute.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to honor Gainesville, Georgia, for earning a spot in the top 100 best cities for job growth in 2011. Now, this award is a testament to the small business owners and the entrepreneurs in Gainesville who work hard every day to innovate and to grow despite the pressures put on them from Washington in this challenging economic climate. To make the top 100, the city of Gainesville was measured on recent growth as well as growth over the last 5 years. Driving the success were the entrepreneurs who created 34 new businesses or grew existing ones. They collectively brought in 1,140 new jobs to Gainesville and nearly $250 million in capital investment. I'm proud to represent Gainesville in Congress and proud of the hard work of my neighbors in Georgia. And today, the city of Gainesville stands a little bit taller because of the hard work of the entrepreneurs in North Georgia. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman's time has expired. What purpose does the gentleman from New Jersey rise? Does the gentleman have a general leave request?
Mr. Speaker, I ask in unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on the further consideration of H.R. 2354, and that I may include tabular material on the same.
Without objection.
Pursuant to House Resolution 337 and Rule 18, the Chair declares the House and the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union for further consideration of H.R. 2354. Will the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Poe, kindly resume the chair?
The House is in the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union for the further consideration of H.R. 2354, which the clerk will report by title.
A bill making appropriations for energy and water development and related agencies for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2012, and for other purposes.
When the Committee of the Whole House rose on Friday, July the 8th, 2011, all time for general debate had expired. Pursuant to the rule, the bill shall be considered for amendment under the 5-minute rule. During consideration of the bill for amendment, the Chair may accord priority in recognition to a member offering an amendment who has caused it to be printed in the designated place in the congressional record. Those amendments will be considered read. The clerk will read.
Be it enacted, the following sums are appropriated for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2012, namely Title I, Corps of Engineers, Civil Department of the Army, Corps of Engineers Civil. Appropriations shall be expended for authorized functions pertaining to rivers and harbors, flood and storm damage reduction, and related efforts. Investigations, $104 million.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Iowa rise?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment offered by Mr. King of Iowa, page 3, line 5. After the dollar amount, insert reduced by $1 million, increased by $1 million.
The gentleman from Iowa is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment that decreases the line item by $1 million and then increases it by $1 million is the parliamentarily approved method by which we direct some intent into this appropriation legislation that we have. And as a lot of the world knows by now, and as I viewed from this morning as it was getting light as we took off from the Omaha airport, we have water that is a mile to as wide as 11 miles wide, and that's just getting to Missouri, and it may well be wider down through Missouri. The Missouri River itself, which it flooded in 1952, and in that year it was the last flood they hoped for all time. They built the Pick-Sloan program. That's 6 dams in the upper Missouri River, and the Corps of Engineers' construction of those was designed to prevent a flood of similar magnitude of 1952. What has happened is that in 52, for a while this year, they had the largest amount of water to flow down the Missouri River. It came down in 52 in April, and that was 13.2 million acre-feet of water. In May of this year, coming out of the Missouri River, it was 10.5 million acre-feet of water, and one might think we can deal with that. Well, we could not. We are flooded, and this water is going to stay up now for another month or longer. And we got the records from June of this year, and that became not 13.2, but 13.8 million acre-feet more water in a single month than to ever come down the Missouri River since we've been keeping records. And, Mr. Chairman, that's just 2 months, and this continues. This year will be the largest volume of water to go down the Missouri River since we've been keeping records.
We don't have a copy of the gentleman's amendment. We're going to start out this way without
Mr. Chairman, I might point out I didn't yield, but I'd be happy to yield to the gentleman.
Well,
Hopefully
do
we get you a
have a
copy.
copy of the amendment? That's what we'd like to have.
I'll personally deliver it to you if this version is.
I didn't see it.
The gentleman from Iowa is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This year, we'll see more water come down the Missouri River than ever before in recorded history. And the result is the Corps of Engineers is releasing 160,000 cubic feet per second from the Gavins Point Dam. That's the lowest one of the 6 dams. That what it brings about is massive flooding all the way down the river for a sustained period of time. Now, I'm not here to take issue with the design, the engineering, or the management of this river, but what this amendment does is it takes $1 million out and puts $1 million back in. And what I'm asking is direct the Corps of Engineers to conduct a new study and come back and let us know how they would have had to manage this river in the event that they had been able to see this massive amount of water coming. How they would have been able to protect not only all the people downstream from each of these reservoirs, but also the additional component of that is that a year ago last May, we had record flooding in the tributaries downstream from Gavins Point, the dam that's the lowest. And we need to be able to look at 2 catastrophic events. All of this snow runoff and rain that we got, particularly in Montana and the mountains, coupled with the record rainfall coming down the tributaries from below Gavins Point Dam that we saw a year ago last May. Those 2 laid on top of each other. How do they have to manage the reservoirs for the purposes of protecting all of that valuable real estate and infrastructure? And my constituents have spent millions of dollars to try to protect themselves. They built miles of levee watching the water come down the river. They've hauled dirt with water coming up on one side of the levee, Mr. Speaker. And so this amendment urges and actually directs the Corps of Engineers to commence with that study. And we'll have more information that it unfolds. I urge its adoption, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back his time. What purpose does the gentleman from New Jersey rise?
Mr. Chairman, we have not had a chance to really study the implications of the gentleman's amendment. First of all, we'd like to extend our sympathy to the gentleman, to his constituents, and to many members of Congress and those affected by the devastation, in many cases loss of life, loss of income, livelihood. But we're not quite sure what $1 million in, $1 million out means, and we need a little more time to further investigate. Would the gentleman be willing to work with us to accomplish this objective without moving ahead with on the amendment? Would you be willing to work with the committee, the ranking, and yours truly to?
And if the gentleman would yield.
Yes.
I think the chairman has made a significant point here. And sometimes we are playing catch-up. I would like to have had the lead work done so that this information was out in front of the majority and the minority. I think you've seen the water coming down the river, and but I would ask this, that if we're willing to work on this, Democrats and Republicans, to bring about a review of the master manual management, then I would ask unanimous consent to withdraw the amendment.
We're highly sympathetic towards working with the gentleman and look forward to working with him to address this crisis, and what he's talking about is future crises and devastation.
If the chairman would yield for a moment.
Be happy to.
I would be happy to work with the chairman, but I would note we are on page 3 of the bill and would hope that as we proceed today and into the future that we have advance notice of amendments. So I would direct my comments in this case to the gentleman at Iowa and those who may be thinking about additional amendments.
Reclaiming my time and
but I would be happy to work with the chairman on this issue.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. King.
Does the gentleman from Iowa seek unanimous consent to withdraw the amendment?
I ask unanimous consent to withdraw the amendment.
Without objection, the amendment is withdrawn.
Page 3, line 13, construction, $1,615,941,000.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Massachusetts rise?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment offered by Mr. Tierney of Massachusetts, page 3, line 24, after the dollar amount, insert increased by $133,822,000. Page 6, line 6, after the dollar amount, insert increased by $51,759,000. Page 24, line 6, after the dollar amount, insert reduced by $92,790,500. Page 24, line 18, after the dollar amount, insert reduced by $92,790,500.
What purpose
Mr. Chairman,
does the gentleman from New Jersey rise?
I reserve a point of order on the gentleman's amendment.
Point of order is reserved. The gentleman from Massachusetts recognized for 5 minutes.
I thank the Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this amendment is relatively straightforward. It ensures that two important Army Corps of Engineers accounts, construction and operation and maintenance, will be funded at last year's level. I certainly understand that the committee was challenged by the allocation it was allotted, and that was $1 billion below fiscal year 2011, and nearly $6 billion less than the President's request. Despite that, I appreciate that Chairman Frelinghouse's added $195 million to the President's budget request for the Army Corps of Engineers. He's to be commended for that. Unfortunately, I think that Congress can and must do better. According to the Army Corps, we have 59 ports and harbors that carry about 90% of our economic activity in this country, 2.2 billion tons of cargo, and $1.4 trillion in commerce. In testimony before the Senate committee last year, an official from the United States Chamber of Commerce discussed the importance of our ports, inland and coastal waterways, to Americans' businesses. This is what the official said. He said, "The business community, from ports to barge operators to agricultural exporters, depends on a marine transportation system to move goods to domestic and international markets. They are also important parts of the nation's economic engine and are drivers for job creation in America. Maintaining our federal channels to their authorized and required dimensions is a critical part of ensuring that this commerce can continue uninterrupted. Yet we continue to have significant dredging backlog, and I'm concerned that this bill's allocation for the Army Corps is insufficient to appropriately address that backlog. And it doesn't just affect commerce, it impacts people's lives very intimately as well. I hear from constituents in my district, particularly those in Newburyport and the Plum Island part of Newbury, who tell me that their homes are quite literally about to fall into the ocean unless the Army Corps can rehabilitate a jetty that hasn't been repaired in 40 years. That's not an uncommon story on our waterways. The least we can do for these families is to ensure that the important Army Corps programs are funded at last year's level. The subcommittee allocation makes that incredibly difficult for members to address, and I understand that. Taking care of perceived deficiencies in a bill are going to need attention. I expect there will be some concerns which I'm perfectly willing to address in my further comments, but for now I'm happy to withhold and reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman may not reserve the balance of his time. Does the gentleman yield back his time?
At that point, let me just add a couple of thoughts then on that in anticipation of what might be brought up. You know, either Congress can fund these important Army Corps functions at last year's level by making modest reductions to two Department of Energy programs that, when combined, receive more than $1 billion in this bill, or Congress can choose to sustain the level of commitment to the Army Corps and slightly reduce the Department of Energy's fossil fuel energy research and development and the nuclear energy programs. I think it's a relatively easy call. For my constituents, it certainly is. Congress should be on the side of increasing its investments and repairing and modernizing its water infrastructure and putting people back to work. So support for this amendment would ensure that we don't diminish our commitment to those critical Army Corps functions. And at that, I will yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Massachusetts yields back his time. The gentleman from New Jersey, what purpose does he rise?
Mr. Chairman, I rise in opposition to the amendment and to move to strike the last word.
The gentleman
continue to reserve, though. My point of order.
The gentleman continues to reserve?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, I share the gentleman's...
The gentleman's recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. I share the gentleman's support for smart investments in our nation's water infrastructure and the good work of the Army Corps of Engineers. We well understand on the committee the economic benefits of spending money on these needs. At the same time, we cannot ignore the importance of addressing our nation's deficit problem and other priorities of the bill, namely national defense and scientific innovation. The underlying bill balances these important goals in part by reducing the construction account from the fiscal year 2011 enacted level, but not by nearly as much as that account was reduced in the President's own fiscal year 2012 budget request. With this level of funding, we're working to reduce the deficit, funding our national defense need, supporting scientific innovation, and at the same time allowing the Corps to continue progress on the most critical water resources investment. We must preserve the careful balance that this bill strikes. Therefore, I must oppose the amendment and urge my colleagues to vote no. I continue to reserve my point of order.
The gentleman yields back, continues to reserve his point of order. Recognition. The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to assert my point of order. Mr. Chairman, the amendment...
The gentleman may state his point of order.
The amendment proposes to amend portions of the bill not yet read. The amendment may not be considered en bloc under Clause 2 of Rule 21 because the amendment proposes to increase the level of outlays in the bill. I ask for a ruling from the Chair.
Does any other member wish to be heard on the point of order? Chair is prepared to rule. To be considered en bloc pursuant to Clause 20F of Rule 21, an amendment must not propose to increase the levels of budget authority or outlays in the bill. Because the amendment offered by the gentleman from Massachusetts proposes a net increase in the level of outlays in the bill, as argued by the chairman of the subcommittee on appropriations, it may not avail itself of Clause 2F to address portions of the bill not yet read. How about the gentleman from Massachusetts? Purpose does the gentleman from Ohio rise? Designate the amendment.
Amendment number 29, offered by Mr. Turno of Ohio.
Mr. Chairman, I offer this amendment and intend to request unanimous...
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I intend to offer this amendment and then request unanimous consent for its withdrawal. This amendment would restore funding to the most critical and historically underfunded portions of this bill, the defense activities of the Department of Energy as carried out by the semi-autonomous National Nuclear Security Administration, NNSA. I thought it was important to offer this amendment so that the record of the discussion of this bill could focus also on the importance of funding shortfalls that are occurring in this bill. The amendment would restore $241 million to NNSA defense activities, our nuclear weapons activities, with an offset from 2 water project catch-all fund lines in the Corps of Engineers account that were not requested by the President. This restoration is critically important to revitalize and modernize our nuclear security enterprise. I encourage my colleagues to consider these charts that depict the cuts in this bill to the vitally important national security programs. The fiscal year 12 Defense Appropriations bill, as reported by the Appropriations Committee, cut Department of Defense spending by 1% below the President's request, the smaller amount. The FY12 Energy and Water Appropriations bill before us cuts funding for the defense activities of the NSA by 10%, including a 7% cut for nuclear weapons activities and nuclear modernization. Again, there's only a 1% cut that is occurring as policy to DOD, but as you can see, NNSA, which is a defense activity, is being cut by 10, our nuclear weapons activities by 7. Meanwhile, the Energy and Water bill increases spending on water projects through the Corps of Engineers by over 4% of the budget request, and that's leaving aside the $1 billion energy supplemental for water projects to address funding on the Mississippi River. The problem is that nuclear weapons spending is considered part of the Energy and Water Appropriations Bill instead of defense appropriations. The funds cut from NNSA support critically needed nuclear modernization efforts that are strongly supported by people on both sides of the aisle, both sides of this Capitol, and by the administration. And I would like to yield time at this point to Dr. Fleming.
Gentleman's recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in support of the amendment being offered by the gentleman from Ohio, which would restore a modest 20% of over $1.1 billion in funding this bill cuts from the defense activities of the Department of Energy, which ensures the safety, security, and reliability of our nation's nuclear weapons. The FY12 Energy and Water Appropriations Bill sharply reduces overall funding for the National Nuclear Security Administration from the President's budget request by more than 10%, or $1.1 billion, while increasing funding for Army Corps of Engineers water projects by 4% above the budget request. This is in addition to the $1 billion plus-up in emergency supplemental disaster relief added to the bill for the Mississippi River flooding. As a member who represents Louisiana, I can appreciate how critical funding for the Army Corps of Engineers is, but we have to consider those priorities in light of the vital need to maintain our national security, which since the end of World War II has rested on the strength of our strategic nuclear deterrent. The reduction set forth in this measure would significantly impact NNSA's ability to implement the goals and policies established in the April 2010 Nuclear Posture Review and our nation's nuclear modernization plans. Most concerning is a $498 million cut that this bill makes to the Weapons Activity Account, which provides the necessary technical support to ensure safety, security, and effectiveness of the U.S. nuclear deterrent. This bill also places at risk the timely replacement of Cold War-era nuclear infrastructure, specifically the construction of the nation's plutonium capability at Los Alamos, the chemistry and metallurgy replacement facility, which is cut by $100 million out of the $300 million necessary for the FY12 activities. Mr. Speaker, at a time when major defense spending cuts are on the horizon, we can ill afford to undercut our nation's last line of defense, which has always been our nuclear deterrent. I strongly urge support of this amendment, and I yield back to the gentleman from Ohio.
Okay. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
This House has 3 times previously confirmed our commitment to fully funding the NNSA activities. I would urge that as we go through the process of this bill, this funding be restored. I ask unanimous consent to withdraw the amendment.
Without objection, the amendment is withdrawn. What purpose does the gentleman from Massachusetts rise?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment offered by Mr. Tierney of Massachusetts. Page 3, line 24, after the dollar amount, insert increased by $133,822,000. Page 6, line 6, after the dollar amount, insert increased by $51,759,000. Page 24, line 6, after the dollar amount, insert reduced by $133,822,000. Page 24, line 18, after the dollar amount, insert reduced by $92,790,500.
What purpose does the gentleman from New Jersey rise?
Mr. Chairman, I reserve a point of order on the gentleman's amendment.
Point of order is reserved. The gentleman from Massachusetts recognized for 5 minutes.
I want to thank the Chair. Mr. Chairman, this is a revised amendment that deals with the objection raised by the Chairman in the previous amendment that was proposed on this matter. It still gets to the fundamental issue here that we need to restore the Army Corps of Engineer budgets here through the construction and operation and maintenance accounts to the point of at least where it was in fiscal year 2011. We have serious issues confronting our economy. This is a way to make sure that the Corps has the resources it needs to deal with its numerous issues at ports, dealing with our economy, moving a cargo, and essentially putting people to work, also protecting the homes and the welfare of people that live a long ways, that need dredging or that need jetties repaired, that haven't been repaired for decade after decade. While I understand that the Chairman had a difficult role and opportunity was limited due to the amount of money that was allocated for him in this committee, and I respect what he tried to do, simply speaking, I think we have the choices to make here, and those choices are to protect the interests of people, to make sure that we get people back to work, to give the Army Corps the resources that it needs, at the same time reducing other accounts by a rather minimal amount so that we affect our purposes without causing too much destruction of programs that other people may favor on that. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back his time. The gentleman from New Jersey.
Mr. Chairman, I rise in opposition to the amendment, but I thank the gentleman for Massachusetts for
Continue to reserve his point of order.
Yes, I do. I rise
Point
in
of order is reserved. The gentleman's recognized for 5 minutes.
I rise in opposition to the amendment basically for the same reasons I did for his earlier amendment. We worked hard to reserve a careful balance that our bill strikes, but I appreciate his effort. We recognize his commitment to this type of work, and when we have a better allocation in the future, maybe we'll be able to be of more assistance. I continue to reserve.
The gentleman continues to reserve. Gentleman from Indiana.
I move to strike the last word.
Gentleman's recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I rise. I do not know if a point of order will be insisted upon. I do not know if it will be prevailed upon, but would want to make a comment relative to the amendment offered by the gentleman from Massachusetts. I agree with everything that Mr. Tierney has said and more during committee and during the general debate on this floor. I mentioned that in the 2009 report card on America's infrastructure, the American Society of Civil Engineers estimated an investment shortfall of $2.2 trillion that is necessary to bring our nation's infrastructure up to good condition. Additionally, the Engineering Society gave our nation's dams, levees, and inland waterway grades of D or D-. I want to use my time because we have had a lot of discussion, and I have joined in that discussion, about the inadequate allocation that the subcommittee has been given. I would also point out that there is another failure, and that is the budget request itself. And the subcommittee has taken note of that on page 13 of their report by stating that the budget request by the President represents a level of investment, as with previous budget requests, that is not reflective of the Corps' importance to the national economy, jobs, or our international competitiveness. And further, the committee urges the administration to take into account, while developing its budget request, the extraordinary economic benefits of the projects historically funded in the Corps accounts, which again jives with exactly the points that the gentleman from Massachusetts has said. So I am in agreement with the gentleman. This is woefully inadequate. The administration bears a blame here as well. But I also must add my voice to the chairman's and respectfully oppose the amendment, simply because we are in a very tight situation with this bill. And would prefer that the amendment not be adopted, despite the relevance of it and the correctness of the gentleman's position from Massachusetts, and I would yield back my time.
Gentleman from Indiana yields back his time. The gentleman from New Jersey.
I withdraw my point of order.
Is withdrawn. Is there further debate on the amendment? The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Massachusetts. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it.
Mr. Chairman,
the gentleman from Massachusetts.
Request a recorded vote.
Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Massachusetts will be postponed. What purpose does the gentleman from Florida rise?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
Clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment offered by Mr. Rivera of Florida. Page 3, line 24, after the dollar amount, insert increased by $32,724,000. Page 23, line 4, after the dollar amount, insert reduced by $32,724,000.
Gentleman from Florida, Mr. Rivera, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. I wish to thank Chairman Frelinghuysen and Ranking Member Ms. Klosky, along with committee staff, for crafting this legislation. The Florida Everglades is one of our nation's greatest treasures. The Everglades combination of abundant moisture, rich soils, and subtropical temperatures support a vast array of species. However, flood control and reclamation efforts in the 1940s and 1950s manipulated the Everglades hydrology, redirecting fresh water destined for the Everglades out to sea. The ecosystem has changed because it now receives less water during the dry season and more during the rainy season. It is also harmed by degraded water quality, pollutants from urban areas, and agricultural runoff, including pesticides and excess nutrients, such as phosphorus and nitrogen, which have harmed plant and animal populations. The programs under the Corps of Engineers South Florida Ecosystem Restoration will capture fresh water destined for the sea, the lifeblood of the Everglades, and direct it back to the ecosystem to revitalize it and protect plant and wildlife. However, Everglades restoration is not only about the ecosystem's restoration. It is also about boosting Florida's economy. According to a study by Atlanta-based Mather Economics, boosting strained water supplies associated with restoration efforts will save local water treatment facilities $13 billion in the long term. It will provide flood control for South Florida and improve local home values by an estimated $16 billion. Furthermore, a healthier water supply, which will contribute to better fishing grounds, will have a huge positive impact on tourism traffic, which is a key aspect of Florida's economy. Everglades restoration is a huge priority for the Florida congressional delegation, and I respectfully ask the committee and chairman for their continued support in protecting and restoring this great natural resource and economic engine. At this time, I would yield to the gentleman from New Jersey, the chairman of the subcommittee.
The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized.
Appreciate the gentleman from Florida for yielding. I appreciate Mr. Rivera's passion for the Everglades restoration and that of the entire Florida delegation, which continues to move forward in this bill. The committee dedicated 8% of the entire Corps construction budget to the Everglades, making it one of 3 of the largest allocations in Title I. So I say to the gentleman that we will continue to work with the Florida delegation on this important issue, knowing how committed they are to it, and when we have additional resources, we hope to be able to consider them. Be happy to yield to the gentleman, the ranking on the committee.
The restoration of the Florida Everglades has been one of our 5 national priorities, and I too want to compliment the gentleman for his support. We have moved forward with the Tamiami Bridge and other important projects, and this is a program of national significance, and I concur with the chairman. Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman from Florida controls the time.
Reclaiming my time, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your commitment. I look forward to working with you and the rest of my colleagues on a bipartisan fashion to achieve the goal of restoring water flow in these areas. At this time, I ask for unanimous consent to withdraw my amendment.
Without objection, the amendment is withdrawn. What purpose does the gentlewoman from Florida rise? Gentlewoman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise to express deep disappointment and concern about the severe proposed cut in this bill to the Everglades ecosystem restoration effort. The energy and water bill before us today slashes $32 million from the administration's request. These times of tight budgets certainly call for belt-tightening, but cutting 20% from the requested amount for Everglades restoration is draconian. It is wildly disproportionate to the more modest 3% cut in the bill to the overall fiscal year 12 Corps of Engineer Construction Fund from fiscal year 11 levels. I thank my colleague, Congressman David Rivera, for joining me and other members of the Florida delegation to urge that full funding be restored to this important national priority, as Mr. Dix just mentioned. I hope we can work together with Chairman Frelinghuysen to make this happen during conference with the Senate. To be sure, Everglades restoration is a priority the Florida congressional delegation takes very seriously, and we have fought for adequate funding every year. Continued investment in Everglades restoration protects our water supply, benefits key job-creating industries, and enhances our quality of life. A recent study by Mather Economics, commissioned by the Everglades Foundation, showed that there is a 4-to-1 return on investment for Everglades restoration projects. The Everglades is the source of water for millions of residents and visitors in South Florida. It is a haven for fishing, hunting, and boating activities, and home to scores of endangered species. There is no other ecosystem in the world like our Everglades, a true national treasure and important resource. I would ask the chairman of the subcommittee to clarify certain language in the committee's report that we find deeply disturbing. I hope this language does not signal the committee's intent to de-emphasize the importance of Everglades restoration in the future. In particular, the language refers to an inability to sustain funding levels and seems to say that the committee views Everglades funding to be inequitable, as if the Everglades has been receiving too much somehow. I hope I'm interpreting the language incorrectly. I hope the committee is not announcing that the Everglades is somehow being deemed as not being a national priority and will not continue to be singled out for cuts in funding from now on. Because make no mistake about it, the Everglades is a national treasure and has been a national priority, as Chairman Dix pointed out, for the federal government since we created the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan in 2000. 11 years ago, members of Congress from both sides of the aisle and from every corner of this great nation came together with the executive branch and partnered with the state of Florida to embark on the largest ecosystem restoration effort on earth. We understood then that it would not be easy or inexpensive, but it had to be done to restore this unique ecosystem. The plan spans 3 decades and has over 60 component projects and will take resolve and a sustained commitment to see this project through to its completion. The Everglades Restoration Plan was spearheaded by esteemed senators from around the nation and both political parties: Republican Bob Smith from New Hampshire, Republican Dave Hobson of Ohio, Democrat Max Baucus from Montana, and of course Florida's own Senators Connie Mack and Bob Graham. Congressman E. Clay Shaw said it perfectly right here on this floor during passage of the Restoration Plan a decade ago when he said, "Mr. Speaker, it is remarkable to have this broad cross-section of Americans supporting legislation on any single issue. But protection of the Everglades is a national priority, because most Americans speak of this national treasure in the same breath as the redwood forests, the Mississippi River, Old Faithful, the Appalachian Trail, or the Grand Canyon." I couldn't agree more, and Presidents Clinton, Bush, and now President Obama share this commitment. In 2001, President George W. Bush said, and I quote, "This area needs our protection, and I am here to join with your governor in the cause of preserving and protecting the Florida Everglades. For its part, the federal government carries important responsibilities and stewardship. It is not enough to regulate and dictate from afar. To preserve places like this, we must bring to our work a new spirit of respect and cooperation." Again, I couldn't agree more. History is important. So are the words that we use or do not use. That is why I am deeply disappointed that the chairman has refused so far to state publicly that Everglades restoration is a national priority. I would note that the chairman, speaking on the energy and water bill for fiscal year 05, stood here on June 24, 2004, and referred to his own local port and harbor dredging and deepening project as a national priority. While having several ports in South Florida, I would agree on the economic significance of navigation infrastructure. But surely the Everglades, a unique national treasure, rises to at least the same level. We need to look beyond our own state borders and districts when we shape our priorities, as our predecessors did. I hope the chairman will see fit to stand with us now and recommit to Everglades restoration as a national priority. Thank you, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman from Florida yields back her time. What purpose does the gentleman from Missouri rise?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a amendment at the desk.
Clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment offered by Mr. Graves of Missouri. Page 3, line 24, after the dollar amount, insert reduced by $1,750,000. Page 6, line 6, after the dollar amount, insert increased by $1 million.
Gentleman from Missouri is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, basically what I'm trying to do here is point out the absurdity and misalignment of priorities which have become clear in this appropriations bill. I live along the Missouri River in Missouri, and we've had families that have been inundated by the flooding that has taken place this year with no real end in sight, to be quite honest with you. This underlying bill provides $73 million for the Missouri River Recovery Program, which is used to fund habitat creation projects. Unfortunately, the underlying bill only provides slightly more than $6 million for the maintenance of the levees all the way from Sioux City, Iowa, to the mouth of the Missouri where it meets up with the Mississippi. So essentially we're spending nearly 12 times more to buy land for the betterment of fish and birds than we are to protect farmers, businesses, and homes that are being flooded right now. This year, many levees in Missouri have been breached and overtopped as a result of the amounts of water and the mismanagement of the river. And many people in my district have been evacuated and will remain evacuated for months in some cases. The President has issued an emergency disaster declaration for parts of Missouri, and yet here we are spending again $73 million for fish and wildlife and a mere $6 million for the maintenance of these levees. While I believe conservation is important, we should not overlook what we sometimes sacrifice to achieve for conservation. In this case, we're sacrificing the livelihoods of businesses and farmers and destroying homes. And again, my amendment just simply transfers money from the construction account to the operation and maintenance account. The intent is just to reduce funding in one and increase that funding in the other. So with that, I would urge my colleagues to support this amendment. Reserve the balance.
May not reserve the balance of his time. Does the gentleman yield back?
I yield back.
Gentleman from Missouri yields back. What purpose does the gentleman from New Jersey rise?
Mr. Chairman, I rise in reluctant opposition to the amendment, although I am very sympathetic
for 5 minutes.
I rise in opposition, but I'm very sympathetic to those that have been devastated by floods in Missouri and other states across the nation. It's a very personal thing for many members of Congress and who look to their congressional districts and see the loss of life and livelihoods and jobs and devastation to family farms and to small towns. So one of the things we did in our bill, of course, and I'm sure the gentleman recognizes, we came up with $1 billion of emergency aid, which hopefully will be of assistance. I know he doesn't speak of that in this amendment, but certainly all members of Congress on both sides of the aisle are committed to help those whose lives have been unalterably changed because of the devastation. My concern with his amendment is that the Corps has said this construction funding is necessary to avoid jeopardy under the Endangered Species Act. If the river system jeopardizes species, it could have great effect on the operations of the river. So speaking to my earlier point, we want to be helpful, but we also look to the Corps for some direction on this point, and as a consequence, I oppose his amendment.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Indiana.
I move to strike the last word.
The gentleman from Indiana is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chair, I would join in the chairman's remarks and emphasize the word reluctantly, because I do understand the devastation that has been suffered. Would emphasize for the record that the chairman recognized the tragedies that have occurred and had an amendment in committee to have $1 billion set aside. Earlier in the process, we had essentially about $1 billion also transferred from the Energy and Water Appropriation Bill to the Homeland Security Bill for various similar purposes. There's no denying the emergency. But as I've said on more than one occasion during the debate of this issue, it is time we as an institution have the intestinal fortitude to understand we have natural disasters. We have people who have lost their lives. We have people who are suffering, who have lost property. We need, in a deliberate, thoughtful fashion, to set those monies aside, as opposed to, if you would, moving monies from accounts to take care of with these emergencies. So I do understand also, looking ahead, that the ultimate cost to the tragedy that the gentleman's constituents and others have suffered is probably going to exceed the monies that have been set aside in this bill, and do hope, again, institutionally, that we address that problem. So I understand the motive, agree with the principle that is espoused, but again would have to reluctantly join in opposition to the amendment, and I would yield back my time.
Again, he yields back his time. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Missouri. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it.
Chairman, I ask for a recorded.
Gentleman from Missouri asks for a recorded vote pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18. Further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Missouri will be postponed. Who seeks recognition? What purpose does the gentleman from Louisiana rise?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
chairman would inform the gentleman from Louisiana we have not reached that point of the reading yet.
Gentleman yields back.
The clerk will read.
Page 5, line 3, Mississippi River and Tributaries, $210 million. Operation and Maintenance, $2,366,465,000.
What purpose does the gentleman from Louisiana rise?
Amendment at the desk, Mr. Chairman.
Clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment offered by Mr. Scalise of Louisiana, page 6, line 6. After the dollar amount, insert increase by $6,360,000. Page 8, line 16. After the dollar amount, insert reduced by $6,360,000.
Gentleman from Louisiana is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I reserve a point of order on the gentleman's amendment. We'd like a copy of the amendment, please.
What purpose does the gentleman from New Jersey rise?
To reserve a point of order.
Point of order is reserved. Gentleman from Louisiana is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've provided copies to the desk of the amendment, but what it does, and this is a bipartisan amendment worked on with Mr. Richmond and others, this amendment deals with dredging. We've seen over the last few months a shift in the Corps of Engineers policy. In years past, they've always reprogrammed millions of dollars, in many cases tens of millions of dollars, from other areas within their agency because they inadequately had initially funded dredging of our waterways. And of course, this is the lifeblood to moving commerce throughout not only much of our country, but as we export to other countries throughout the world. For whatever reason, the Corps made an internal decision earlier this year that they would no longer do that reprogramming, which jeopardizes much of the movements that we have along our waterways. This amendment is revenue neutral, doesn't add anything to the cost of the bill, but what it does is it takes money out of the general administration bill, which actually saw an increase this year, moves it over into the general operations and maintenance section of the bill so that it allows us at least additional revenues to go and properly dredge our waterways. Why is this important? Number one, it's a critical jobs issue because as we just saw a few weeks ago prior to some of the record levels of flooding, Mr. Chairman, we saw they had to roll back, just in my region of the New Orleans area, they had to roll back some of the depth that they were allowed to transport on the Mississippi River. This cost over about $1 million per vessel added costs to move commerce throughout our country. Not only does that cost jobs, but it also increases the cost of goods for Americans who buy those products, but it also increases the cost of exporting, and it makes our American companies less competitive in the world. And of course, right now, this Congress, the President, we're working together to try to reach trade agreements with Colombia, Panama, and South Korea. And I support more trade, free trade, the ability for more American employers to be able to sell their goods throughout the world, to actually create more jobs in America. But if we're going to do that, we've got to have the proper dredging going on to allow for that commerce along our waterways. And so if the Corps is allowed to go through with their policy of no more reprogramming, we know from what they've said, we know from what history's shown us, that in years past they didn't have adequate amounts in their operations and maintenance for dredging, and so they have reprogrammed every year for years now. That's been going on, and they've said this year they're no longer going to do it. And so we would be sitting in a situation where we would have to wait until some of our waterways are shut down or until you saw vessels grounded like we just saw a few weeks ago, just in the New Orleans area because of their lack of dredging. And then we would lose more jobs. We would lose our ability to export more. So what we're saying is there is additional money in this fund, in the General Administration Fund. We know this is a looming problem if we don't address it. And so let's move it somewhere where it'll actually help us create jobs and remain competitive, and hopefully as those trade agreements move through Congress, where we now have more opportunities if those trade agreements move through, to trade even more and to create more jobs in America, then our ability to move those goods through our waterways would still be there, because they won't if we're not properly dredging our waterways. So this amendment addresses that problem, and it's a problem we know is coming because the Corps themselves has said this is looming. So let's address it head on. Let's not wait until it's a crisis before we do something about it, and that's why I bring the amendment. Again, amendment with bipartisan support. Now yield back.
Gentleman from Louisiana yields back. Does the gentleman from New Jersey continue to reserve his point of order?
Yes, I do.
Point of order is reserved. Nice.
Mr. Chairman, unfortunately and reluctantly, I must oppose the gentleman from Louisiana's amendment.
Gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I share the gentleman's concern for sufficiently maintaining our waterways as necessary to realizing the national economic benefits of efficient cargo transportation, representing, as I do, part of New Jersey, which is highly dependent on the Port of New York and New Jersey. I'm well aware that navigation and money for navigation and dredging is absolutely essential, and I'm highly sympathetic to the gentleman from Louisiana for all of the historical things that have impacted Louisiana's economy and so many people down there. In fact, a major factor in developing the recommendation for the Army Corps of Engineers budget this year was to focus proportionally more funds on the projects and activities that contribute most to the economy and job creation, including dredging and other navigation improvements. The underlying bill does not include, as we're aware, any congressional earmarks, and oftentimes these issues were dealt with through the earmark process. Rather, our bill provides the Army Corps of Engineers the flexibility to allocate programmatic funds to those navigation and flood control projects that it deems most critical. And we have the ability as individual members of Congress to help the Corps focus on what we feel is most critical for their attention. The Corps is required to report to Congress in our bill within 45 days of enactment on which projects were deemed most critical and why. Navigation needs are not the only important issues addressed in our bill, however. Increased funding for this programmatic line even further would upset the careful balance of priorities that I've spoken of earlier, including national defense, which is a major component of why we even have a Department of Energy, and nuclear safety, energy innovation, and of course the great work of the Army Corps, the water resources needs. So therefore, reluctantly, I must oppose the gentleman's amendment and withdraw my point of order.
Gentleman.